It was the year 1927, and New York City was under the weight of Prohibition. The streets were alive with whispers of speakeasies, and the underground world of bootleg liquor thrived despite the government's best efforts to stop it. In the heart of the city, Detective Samuel Carter had seen his fair share of cases, but nothing quite like this. Carter, a tall man with sharp features and a hardened gaze, had been working in the shadows of the law for over a decade. He wasn't a stranger to the lawlessness that came with Prohibition, but when the body of a well-known businessman, Thomas Bennett, was found in a dimly lit alleyway, it was clear this case was different. Bennett had been an influential figure in New York, with connections that stretched from the boardrooms of Wall Street to the dark corners of the city's underworld. His involvement in the bootlegging trade was no secret, and many had speculated about his rise to power. Some said he was untouchable, but now he was dead. Carter stood over the body, examining the scene with his trained eyes. There were no signs of a struggle, no obvious wounds, and the only clue was a small, carefully folded note in Bennett's hand. It read, "Prohibition's price is higher than you think." "Any witnesses?" Carter asked, turning to the officer standing nearby. The officer shook his head. "No, sir, it's a quiet alley. The usual crowd wouldn't dare be around here at this hour." Carter nodded, deep in thought. The note was cryptic, but the message was clear. Someone had killed Bennett, and the reason was tied to the Prohibition, something far more dangerous than simple revenge. As he walked away from the scene, Carter's mind raced. Bennett's connections to the speakeasy and bootlegging world were well known, but who would want him dead? Was it a rival gang? Or perhaps someone from within his own organization? The detective made his way to the office of his old friend, Jack Thompson, a reporter with the New York Herald. Jack had a way of finding out things that no one else could, and Carter needed answers. Jack was seated at his desk, flipping through papers when Carter walked in. Without looking up, Jack said, "I heard about Bennett. You think it's connected to the bootlegging trade?" "I'm sure of it," Carter replied, "but something doesn't add up. I need your help." Jack leaned back in his chair, finally looking up. "What's the deal?" Carter handed him the note. This was found in Bennett's hand. The words make no sense. "Prohibition's price is higher than you think. What do you make of it?" Jack studied the note for a long moment before raising an eyebrow. "Sounds like a warning, not just to Bennett, but to anyone involved in the trade. Whoever did this didn't just want him dead, they wanted to send a message." Carter nodded. "That's what I thought. But who's the message for? Bennett had enemies, sure. But why go through all the trouble of this cryptic note?" Jack stood up and walked over to a map pinned to the wall. It was marked with locations, speakeasies, known bootlegging routes, and other spots where the underground world thrived. "I've been following a few leads myself," Jack said, pointing at a spot on the map. "This is where the last big shipment of illegal alcohol was intercepted. Bennett's men were involved." Carter looked closely at the map. "You think there's a connection between this shipment and Bennett's murder?" Jack nodded. "I do, but it's deeper than that. Bennett wasn't just selling alcohol. He was getting involved in something bigger, something more dangerous." Carter's instincts kicked in. "And you think this has something to do with that?" "Maybe," Jack said. "But I don't know yet. All I know is that Bennett's murder is a warning someone's trying to take control of the city's underground liquor trade." The detective left Jack's office and made his way to the docks, where the bootleggers operated in the dead of night. He knew that this was the heart of the operation. As he approached a warehouse, he saw a few figures in the shadows. They were unloading crates from a boat. Carter's heart raced as he stepped forward, his hand resting on the holster of his gun. "You know "It's dangerous to come around here, detective," a voice called out from the darkness. Carter turned slowly to see a man stepping out from behind a stack of crates. It was Luca Rossi, a notorious bootlegger who had been on Carter's radar for years. "I'm not here for a fight, Rossi," Carter said coolly. "I'm here to find out who killed Thomas Bennett." Rossi smirked. "Bennett? The man who thought he could control the whole city? He had too many enemies." "I know that," Carter replied, "but I need to know who pulled the trigger." "What's the price of prohibition in this city, Rossi?" Rossi's smile faded. "You don't get it, do you, detective? Prohibition isn't about alcohol anymore. It's about power, control of the streets." Bennett tried to play both sides. He wasn't just a businessman. He was mixing with the wrong people. And now he's gone. Carter's eyes narrowed. "Who took him out?" Rossi stepped closer, his voice low. "You're not going to like the answer." Before Carter could react, Rossi pulled out a gun, aiming it directly at him. "This city belongs to those who understand the price of prohibition. Bennett didn't. You're about to learn the hard way, too." Carter's hand was already on his revolver, but before he could make a move, shots rang out from the shadows. Rossi fell to the ground, his gun skittering away as he let out a pained gasp. From the dark corner of the warehouse, a figure emerged tall, cloaked in a long coat. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a familiar face. It was Jack Thompson. "You?" Carter exclaimed, taken aback. Jack gave a cold smile. "It was never about the liquor, Sam. It was about control. And Bennett wasn't the only one who needed to be removed." Carter looked at Jack, the realization sinking in. The murder wasn't just a warning. It was part of a bigger plan, a plan that Jack had been involved in all along. "You were playing both sides," Carter said, his voice low with anger. Jack shrugged, unfazed. "Prohibition's price isn't just money, detective. It's everything." And with that, Carter understood. The cost of prohibition wasn't just the lives lost. It was the price of power, and it seemed Jack was willing to pay it. As the detective watched his old friend disappear into the shadows, he couldn't help but wonder how many others were willing to pay the price for control.